Last week, we started our journey into Egyptian mythology with a discussion on the topic of creation. Before we move on to other chapters, we need to take a look at the family tree in Egyptian mythology. This is because the Egyptian civilization is quite ancient, and the family tree has undergone many changes over time. None is more of a place than a person, but sometimes also a person in many ancient Egyptian myths. The first god is said to have emerged from a complex watery abyss called Nun. He either still resides in the watery abyss or once lived there. There is also a stranger myth originating from Hermopolis. Varun and his consort, both serpent deities, were the first to create the egg containing Ra. Just beneath them is Apep. These are independent mythological beings, not sons or gods. According to Egyptian belief, they had to be defeated for the creation of the universe. These are independent mythological beings, not offspring or gods. According to Egyptian belief, they had to be defeated for the creation of the universe. Apep is a colossal serpent blamed in one way or another for all things evil in Egyptian mythology. Storms, famines, invasions, earthquakes, all are said to be caused by Apep. It spends most of its days attacking the gods on Ra's sun barge, and at night it is said to be torn into pieces in the underworld. Throughout most of his life, Aten became an idolized version of the sun and was seen as a version of Ra. However, this changed with the ambitious fourth pharaoh, Amenhotep IV, before he took on his new title, Akhenaton. He renamed himself Amenhotep as Aten was declared the sole true god. Akhenaton radically transformed the powerful Amon belief that existed before him, altering the course of history. I am considering making a separate video about this. Ra is both the first god and the first pharaoh of the gods. This also makes sense of having the human pharaoh as a singular model. He carries the sun across the sky during the day and, at night, travels through the underworld, constantly warding off attacks from the forces of chaos. Atum is often depicted as an elderly man seated on a throne, sometimes with a ram's head or leaning on his staff. He is a kind of primary creator god, but over a few thousand years, he merged with Ra and later with Amun. In ancient times, Atum was said to have created the sacred feminine essence by either spitting it out or by combining the essence of creating sacred women, which he created by himself, with the essence of creating sacred men. Amun began as the patron of the gods, and as Thebes became increasingly important for Egypt, Amun's significance grew. It wasn't until he merged with Ra, becoming the great king god himself called Amun-Ra, that he was considered important enough retroactively as he had first created himself and then everything else. According to the people of Thebes, Mut was the wife of Amun and the mother of all other gods. Originally, Amun had another wife named Amont, which simply meant Lady of Amun. She was likely a representative figure who was associated with loyalty, childbirth, and motherhood. Hathor was the spiritual mother of the pharaoh, who was symbolized as the human form of Atum, and she was also his wife and chief priestess. So, in essence, she served as both the king's wife and his spiritual mother, while also being the chief goddess of art and intoxication. Sekhmet was the lion-headed goddess of war and violence, which is why many rituals in Egypt were performed to appease her. She played a significant role in the downfall of humanity, as the story goes that when humanity revolted against Ra and sent Sekhmet to destroy them, she went to great extremes, not sparing anyone and creating an ocean of blood. To stop her, Ra ordered thousands of jugs of red beer to be poured onto the ground. Sekhmet, unable to resist the blood-like beer, became so intoxicated that she couldn't continue her mission to annihilate the human race. Bastet, a nurturing goddess who cared for pregnant women and young pharaohs and guided the souls of the deceased in the underworld. If you see a mummified cat in a museum, it is likely related to her. Ma'at was the goddess of sacred justice and law. More importantly, she represented the concept of the correct order of the universe, embodying true justice, health, prosperity, harmony, and overall well-being. Sometimes she is depicted weighing a person's heart against a feather. If the heart is lighter, the deceased goes to the blessed afterlife. If the heart is heavier, the person is consumed by a monster until their existence comes to an end. Shu was the god who resided between the Earth's atmosphere and the sky, often symbolized as the empty space in between. At one point, he realizes that his children, Geb and Nut, are in love with each other. He despises this so much that he forcibly separates them, with Geb residing below and Nut above. This is why we find ourselves in the space between the earth and the sky, encountering the magnificent spectacle of the heavens. Shu is, in fact, the first god who disapproved of the incestuous relationship we see in this mythology. One of the most notable features about Tefnut is her female lioness-headed appearance. Additionally, it is known that Tefnut was a spouse. However, when it comes to mythological stories, there are often limited or missing details about Tefnut. Therefore, gaining more information about Tefnut's role and life in mythological narratives is quite challenging, highlighting her as a mysterious and intriguing figure. You may have noticed the horsetail in the depiction of Khonsu's hair. This is called the youth lock, and in ancient Egyptian art, it emphasizes youthfulness. Originally, Khonsu was a savage and cannibalistic god who absorbed the powers of other gods by eating their organs. However, over the years, he transformed into a gentler deity, bringing balance and prosperity to the time. Ptah, in his purest form, was the god of primordial and enduring existence, as well as the creator of matter and form in the city of Memphis. He was the supreme deity there and is said to have created himself from nothingness at the beginning of time. Then, he spoke the names of other gods to bring them into existence. If this sounds familiar, it's because these gods in this context were often seen as the creators or heads of their respective cities or regions. Kadesh, the Canaanite god of sexuality, was added to the Egyptian pantheon and became quite popular. They are often depicted holding lotus flowers in one hand and a snake in the other, and they tend to be more explicit in their representations than what is typically shown in Egyptian art. Resep, the Canaanite god of plague and war, was later added to the Egyptian pantheon, including in places like Kadesh. Taweret, a god resembling a hippopotamus, is entirely wild when it comes to protecting her children, much like a real hippopotamus. She is often depicted with lion's paws, a crocodile tail, and pendulous breasts. Bes is indeed intriguing. In ancient Egypt, most deities were depicted as young, beautiful, and in a side-profile view. Bes, on the other hand, is often portrayed as bearded, chubby, and more like a frontal portrait of a little man. Although he started as a minor character associated with warding off evil spirits, over a few thousand years, he became widely talked about as the protector of homes and the god of fun and entertainment. Imhotep was a deified human. His true historical existence dates back to the 3rd millennium BCE, long before the Common Era. He served as a counselor to the pharaoh, a prophet of Ptah, and was the architect of the first pyramid. His expertise in medicine, combined with other legends, has cemented his place in the minds of the people as a god of medicine and healing. Nefertem is the god of beauty and fragrances. He is said to have been born from a lotus flower and is often depicted with a lotus flower on his head. Geb is the god of the earth, or sometimes considered the embodiment of the earth itself. Nut is the goddess of the sky, or the sky itself. According to the myth, every night, Nut swallows the sun, and every morning she gives birth to it again. Babi is a lesser-known god in Egyptian mythology. There was a time when almost every Egyptian believed that their deceased ancestors became baboons. This is why Babi became associated with the afterlife and the realm beyond death. Min, the god of male fertility, was indeed associated with matters of procreation. In ancient Egypt, people would sometimes wear amulets or jewelry dedicated to Min on romantic evenings, believing it could enhance their chances of fertility and success in producing offspring. Isis is indeed a wise, magical, and extraordinarily cunning goddess, representing the Egyptian ideal of femininity. She is the wife of Osiris and the mother of Horus, making her the symbolic mother of all pharaohs. She is often represented with a throne on her head, symbolizing her association with the throne and queenship. Osiris inherited his rule from Geb, but his reign was short-lived. His brother Set killed him, dismembered his body, and scattered the pieces throughout Egypt. As Osiris had no children, Set declared himself pharaoh. During this time, Isis, deeply grieved, used her magic to gather and reassemble Osiris's body and even brought him back to life long enough to conceive a child. However, this resurrection process took so long that she eventually passed away, spending her remaining time as the chief deity in the afterlife. Nephthys, Set's wife, turned her back on him when everyone else had turned away from him. Set was a powerful and quick-tempered warrior, often seen as the god of chaos, illness, storms, drought, plagues, and foreign lands. The Egyptians did not view stubbornness, introversion, or selfishness as negative traits. In fact, all of these characteristics were present in Set. However, during his time as pharaoh, he excelled in protecting his realm. Horus is the sovereign pharaoh of the gods, and every human pharaoh is considered his earthly embodiment. The story continues with his mother conceiving him from the dead Osiris, and he is secretly raised while his uncle Set forcibly takes the throne. When he matures, Horus challenges Set for the throne. Set believes that Horus is young and inexperienced, so he insists that Horus must prove himself as a better leader through a series of contests. Anubis is the handsome god of embalming and was worshipped long before Osiris assigned him this role. During the period when Egypt was ruled by Greek pharaohs between 250 and 300 BCE, Anubis combined with Hermes to become Hermanubis. Hapi is the god of inundation and is considered the son or messenger of Ptah. In Memphis, they used a real black bull to represent Apis. To determine if a bull was the chosen one, questions like, does it have a white triangle on its forehead? Do its markings on the back resemble the god Canopus? Does it have a scarab beetle the size of a small coin under its tongue? Were asked. If the bull passed these tests, it would live a luxurious life in a special pasture filled with cows until the age of 25, after which a grand funeral ceremony would be held upon its death. Khepri, the god of the rising sun, was often depicted as a scarab beetle rolling a ball of dung, symbolizing the sun's rebirth each day. He represented the cycle of creation, death, and rebirth, a fundamental concept in Egyptian mythology. Hapi, the god of the annual Nile floods, played a pivotal role in the agricultural prosperity of Egypt. His swollen figure represented abundance, and he was often portrayed with full breasts, symbolizing the nourishing properties of the Nile's waters. Thoth, the god of wisdom, mathematics, and record-keeping, was instrumental in the development of writing and knowledge preservation in Egypt. His association with ibises and baboons symbolized his connection to the moon and the wisdom it represents. Seshat, who means the female scribe, was the goddess of writing, measurement, and architecture. She is often depicted as a woman wearing a leopard skin with a 7-pointed emblem on her head, signifying her role as a record keeper. Khnum, the potter god, was responsible for shaping human bodies from clay on his potter's wheel. He was also associated with the annual Nile floods and the source of the river. Nekhbet and Wadjet were protective goddesses, with Nekhbet representing Upper Egypt and Wadjet representing Lower Egypt. They were often depicted as vultures, cobras, or women wearing their respective crowns. Serket, a lesser-known goddess, was associated with healing and protection against scorpion stings. She was often depicted as a woman with a scorpion on her head. Anuket, the goddess of the Nile cataracts, was represented as a woman wearing a tall headdress with ostrich feathers. She was revered for her role in controlling the flow of the Nile. Neith, an ancient goddess, was associated with war, hunting, and creation. She was one of the most ancient deities in Egyptian mythology. Min, the god of male, fertility, and agricultural abundance, was often depicted with an erect phallus and a lettuce-shaped crown. These are just a few of the many deities in Egyptian mythology, each with its unique attributes, symbolism, and significance. While this infographic doesn't cover all of them, it provides a general overview of the Egyptian gods and goddesses based on their importance. I hope you find this information helpful. Stay tuned for the next video.